Benavidez, Morrell, who wins?
It's gonna be a good fight. It's gonna be a good fight. 50-50 fight.
And I think that it's going to be a war. In my eyes, I see it as a 50-50 fight.
These fighters, I think David Morrell may have needed, one or two more real tests before he really, build the resolve to be able to handle a guy with the ability, the power.
Additionally, it will be a good fight regardless of Morrell's victory. 5-0, 5-0-5, and in my opinion, it will be a war. I believe that these fighters will fight each other 50-50ths. Before he truly developed the determination to be able to handle a man with the power boxing skill, David Morrell might have needed one or two more serious tests. Sean Porter predicts that David Benavidez will defeat David Morrell in their 12-round main event this Saturday, February 1st, at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, after experts have announced their predictions for the bout. Porter's viewpoint is similar to that of pro-Benavidez fans who believe that Benavidez has more professional arena experience than the 11-0 Morrell thinks Benavidez is superior than Morrell because of the experienced opposition Benavidez has encountered in the professional ranks, which are 36 sets apart. Canelo Alvarez had already removed the plant, and Andrade had passed his prime. Ben's wins over them don't help his credibility in this fight. On the contrary, they only serve to increase the doubt that surrounds him. We know that Benavidez didn't look good in his June debut against Alexander Gzic. He was hurt by the stronger opponent, ran out of gas, and displayed little strength. Sean Porter revealed that the fight is fairly evenly matched, with a slight edge to Benavidez, whom he favored 55-45. He expressed his excitement about the fight, calling it a David versus David fight, and mentioned that he loved everything about it. Porter continued by explaining that Benavidez had the advantage over Morrell in terms of strength and experience, noting that although both fighters were large, he thought Benavidez was more suited for the 175-pound division. He also emphasized that Ben's experience with withstanding resistance throughout the various stages of a 12-round fight would be crucial, something that Morrell hadn't yet encountered at the professional level. Porter also stated that Morrell's previous fight against Ravia Collides, which was a different kind of challenge that didn't involve the kind of resistance that a competitive 12-round bout would bring.
Fight is that one?
That's 50-50 right there. If anything, 55-45 for Benavidez.
Yeah.
I love David versus David. I love everything about the fight. The thing I feel that Benavidez has over Morrell is experience, is true strength. Both of those guys are big guys, but I think Benavidez is more of the natural 175-pounder.
Yeah, you're like, Morrell's such a high-level technical fighter, but Jose mentioned what you just mentioned, they feel like the experience is gonna eventually show through. I don't know, take me into that, how experience can trump talent and technicality like that.
You know what? The thing that I know for this fight, with when you are in a competitive fight that's gonna go 12 rounds, of course you're prepared for the 12.
F is that one that's 50-50 right there. If anything, 55-45 for Benavidez. I love the fight. I think that Benavidez has an advantage over Morrell because of his experience and true strength. Both of those guys are big, but I think that Benavidez or Dave is more of a natural 175-pounder. Jose mentioned what you just said, though. They feel like the experience will eventually show through, I know how experience can trump, talent and technicality, like that. You know what I know for this fight is that when you are in a competitive fight that's going to go 12 rounds, of course you're ready for the 12 Porter notes that although Morrell easily defeated Ravo Kadek in his 175-pound debut on August 3rd of last year, he wasn't put on the defensive like Benavidez is predicted to do this Saturday. Morrell has yet to face an opponent who applies constant pressure or who matches the sheer size of the cruiserweight like Benavidez. Ravo's single punches are more powerful than Benavidez, but he wasn't trying to smother Morrell with constant volume as the Mexican monster plans to. If Benavidez surges in carelessly, he could run into Morrell's swift counters or be folded by a well-placed body shot. Morrell's performance against Alexander Gzic on June 15th of last year was even more impressive, than Ben's debut at 175 pounds. He lost steam after 8 rounds and was in major trouble in the 12th when Gask ate him. In the last 30 seconds, Benavidez was merely a stationary target, taking in a flurry of punishing combinations from the Ukrainian. Porter clarified that Bennett was able to match Morrell in both speed and power, and that he could also box with him successfully. He added that this kind of resistance would test Bennett's morals and create a mental and physical roller coaster during the fight. We don't know if Bennett can go head-to-head with Morrell without getting knocked down, but he did demonstrate that he could trade blows with the smaller, aging 168-pounders, who padded his early record. However, that strategy failed at 175 against Gastic, as he was rocked and pointed fingers at his injured hands, an excuse that sounded more like damage control than reality. He might be knocked out early because Morrell can chip away at Benavidez's head, which is like a block of granite, as we saw in his fight with Gusk. It makes natural that Benes absorbs headshots much better than body hits. Imagine Benavidez defeating Morrell in 6 rounds, just like he did against the smaller and older Demetrius Andrade on November 25, 2023. His love of food frequently causes him to gain a lot of weight in between fights, and like many fighters with a long torso and fluctuating physique, his midsection remains a clear weak spot when asked if he could. Porter said he preferred Benavidez but wasn't sure. He hypothesized that since Morrell was younger and taller than Andrade, it may take 8 or more rounds for anything similar to occur with him. Porter explained that even though Morrell was the same height as Andrade, he was stronger and had more physical advantages. He said that the fight would be a beautiful matchup, but that Benavidez would find it difficult to win by knockout without running the serious risk of being stopped by Morrell or being consistently outboxed. He cannot afford to approach this fight the same way he did against the smaller, older opponents he dominated at super middleweight. His record at 168 is paper-thin and only marginally better than Edgar Berlanga. Canelo Alvarez, meanwhile, acknowledges that he is unsure about the outcome of Saturday's light heavyweight bout between David Morrell and David Benavidez. Canelo had previously been linked to 2 boxers who are vying for the WBA regular and WBC interim titles. Alvarez thinks the fight will be evenly matched, but Canelo will definitely be keeping a careful eye on the bookmakers' choice to defeat the unbeaten Cuban Benavidez. After failing to get a fight against Canelo, who holds 3 of the 4 world titles at 168 pounds, Canelo declared that it would be a nice fight and that it would be a 50-50 contest. Benav moved up from super middleweight in June after defeating former world champion Alexander Gazik in his first light heavyweight fight. Morrell is also moving up to 175 pounds and making his divisional debut with a points victory over RAV in August, but Andy Cruz believes David Morrell will win by knockout. The gold medalist from the 2020 Olympics crew relates Morrell to himself, pointing out that they both have a carefree, light-hearted attitude to the game. Benavidez is clearly carrying the weight of uncertainty as he prepares for his showdown with Morrell while watching the Mexican Monster. He is fully aware that this fight could be his downfall, but also that it could make all of his career's hard work meaningless. The thought that his time at the top may be coming to an end seems to haunt him, pushing him to adopt an intimidating demeanor in an effort to undermine Morrell's confidence. Benitez has avoided Morrell's constant calls since 2022, and for good reason. For the last 5 years, he has been making money off of older, smaller opponents who are well past their prime. A bout with Morrell could end that profitable run and force him to take on a challenge he has long shunned. I can say that Morrell is a classic Cuban boxer because he's always smiling and dancing. He seems to be very similar to me in that way. Always joking and dancing, but maybe he's even worse than me, stated Andy Cruz to the press about the upcoming battle between David Morrell and David Benavidez on Saturday. February 1st, Cruz went on to discuss David Morrell in relation to his "I can see that he is very concentrated on this fight. We fans are supporting Benavidez because they regard him as a top fighter and they won't be amenable to Morrell exposing him as a fraud. It will be a tough fight, but I think he'll put on a good show. I don't just see him winning. I see him winning by knockout. When Benavidez loses, they will jump off his sinking ship, leaving him adrift as he slides beneath the waves. Nobody likes to watch their idols be exposed as nothing more than hype, leaving them feeling deceived and disappointed. Fans of Ben's will be devastated by his loss because they have long praised him as the best fighter in the 168B division and believed he had what it took to defeat Canelo Alvarez. However, they have hardly ever examined his fighting style or the caliber of opponents he has faced in his 12-year career, which begs important questions. Comparing Ben's slender resume to his most recent fight against Alexander Giga.
And man, how do you think Benavidez does? Your gym mate a week after you fight. How do you think that fight goes with Morrell, man?
I think David, he's looking very good. I've been in the gym with him for the past few weeks, and he's been looking great shape. Doing some amazing things in the ring, like always. David's a monster, so I think he'll take care of business February 1st. I think he might even get the stoppage against David Morrell.
It is evident that he is a complete idiot and was never the fighter that the unsuspecting fans thought him to be. His performance shows that he is just another expertly constructed fighter who competes outside of his true weight class and is supported by fights against elderly, undersized opponents. Lightweight and heavy contestant Adu Kadek thinks that David Morrell's victory over David Benavidez depends on him remaining composed over the pivotal first 6 to 8 rounds. Whereas super middleweight Diego Pacho, in an interview with Shazid,
David Morrell is a guy that you can't take lightly. He's a great fighter. He's up there for a reason. One of the best Cubans out right now. So it's gonna be a great fight. But I just feel like David is one of those guys too who's a monster and just doesn't let anyone take it from him. And when he's in there, he's going in there for the kill. And of course, I feel like Morrell is maybe gonna be his toughest opponent yet.
The contestant believes David Benavidez will triumph over David Morrell. Reflecting on his recent sparring sessions with Benitez, Pacho gave a preview of the highly anticipated light heavyweight showdown. However, his habit of calling him David might make viewers wonder which fighter he is referring to. Perhaps one of them should take on the moniker Goliath specifically for this fight. Show told Zito that Benitez had been looking very impressive.
Prevail.
I think he has a really good jab. He's a good fighter. He keeps his distance really well, so that I feel like he's gonna make it hard for David in the early rounds. But like we saw with Caleb Plant, Caleb Plant was doing a great job boxing the first few rounds when he fought David, but then David just has that chip in his shoulder where he's just coming forward. Even on the clinches, he's still punching. He's still getting punches in, and I feel like when you're boxing a guy like David and he just keeps coming forward no matter what you do, it just makes it hard mentally for you to keep that same game plan and stick to it, because you have a monster like him throwing big punches coming in.
After training with him for the past few weeks, he praised Benitez's great shape and the amazing things he has been doing in the ring. Calling him a monster, he expressed confidence that Benitez would handle business on February 1st, even suggesting that he might secure a stoppage. Triumph against David Morrell. Man, how is Benitez doing? You're your gym buddy, and a week after your fight, how do you think that fight goes with Morrell? I believe David is in excellent shape, and I've been working out with him for the past few weeks. He's been doing some incredible things in the ring as usual. David is a monster, so I think he'll take care of business on February 1st, and I think he might even get the stoppage against David Morrell. However, Pacho, who sparred with him only 3 months ago, emphasized the strength of Benz's defense when asked about Benz's underappreciated skills. As he highlighted Benz's defense, Pooh's eyes brightened. He said that although Bennett frequently stands erect, his defensive abilities were remarkable. He clarified that Bennett was adept at retreating and then swiftly reacting with blows, which made his defense remarkably successful. You can't take David Morrell lightly, He's a great fighter, and he's up there for a reason. He's one of the best Cubans out there right now, so yeah, it's going to be a great fight, but I feel like David is one of those guys who's a monster, and then he just doesn't let anyone take it from him. Of course, I think Morrell might be his toughest opponent yet. Joe also shared with Zittel that Bennett films everything, paying close attention to every detail. The EXP explained that Bennett meticulously examines footage, paying close attention to even the smallest details, such as footwork and shoulder movements, and adjusts his tactics accordingly. Pacho valued that Benavidez continuously shared this information with him and offered advice and recommendations that he thought would help P's training. 5. I believe that Prevail is going to make it difficult for David in the early rounds because, as we saw with Caleb Plant,